Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on WSGW. Now, here is your host, Kareem Bowen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America. We are here today, and we have what I think is a great conversation to have for the beginning of the year. I always talk to so many people who are talking about changes and the things that are happening. And I don't know about anyone else, but I know that in this particular season, it seems like there are a ton of changes on the horizon. I want to bring into the conversation stream. You see him out there. I want to talk to John B. What's good, John?
Hello.
John is the producer of this great show, and he is always here. I love his commentary and his perspective. But we got another guy back there that is just all over the country. That's my main man, Mark Bassett. What's good, Mark?
Hey now, from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
Yeah, we got the sniffles and we're coughing and all this other great stuff. Mark, what's happening in Fort Leavenworth?
Well, it's warming up to a balmy 30 degrees today after being, it started yesterday at -6. So
it's tropical down there.
Yeah, it's tropical down. I could wear a t-shirt today.
Wow. Well, unfortunately, if you are in the Midwest, Michigan, Chicago, Joliet, any of these places, Pennsylvania, the entire place is on froze. It is on froze, as they said on Black Panther. You froze. But I guess this is what we're used to. People say, hey, you're from Michigan. You should be used to this. There is no getting used to. What are our temperatures today, Jonathan?
I think we're hitting 10.
Like,
I think we just hit 10.
But I was out like late last night, and I was out. It was like negative 14 degrees.
Like the wind chill has been like negative 15. Yeah.
This is like little Antarctica. I mean, there is no getting used to this. And as a black man, we are tropical people. I just need y'all to understand that. So I need the warmer temperatures, the warmer weather. I am a person who enjoys when it is like 98 to 101. That is my sweet spot. So I'm suffering in silence over here. No, I'm not silent. I'm complaining. I came into the studio complaining today. But hey, there are so many amazing things that are going on. If you are a Michigan person, if you are in the great state of Michigan and you happen to be a Lions fan, which there are still, Jonathan, there's still
or a U of M football fan. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I had to get it in.
I get sabotaged on my own show talking as I sit here with my all of the other days you haven't said anything, Jonathan. The day I come in with my
you're talking about football. So
okay. So congratulations, puppy dogs, Wolverines. That's what they are. But when we look at the landscape of football, and I have been, I'm a born and raised Michigander, and I am just blown away. I'm waiting, pinching myself, trying to figure out what is going on with the Detroit Lions. Every year, over the past, 3-4 years, it's like, oh, they show us this great diamond team. And then they're like, oh, there they go. We were wondering where they were. They're right there. This is real, guys. This is really happening. Pinch yourself. What's going on? Jonathan, is this something? Do you think that we can get to the big dance as it relates to what's going on? I thought that we were going to see the old team show up on their last playoff game, the first one. And they did it. They pulled it off. I could not believe it. What is your thoughts about what's going on here?
I think momentum in sports is a real thing. And I think that this might be the biggest hurdle towards, like, if they getting one is one thing. Getting two is a whole other thing when you're talking about playoffs. I think.
So if you think that if they get two of these championship games,
I think they'll be in a good spot mentally to get there. I don't know about athletically.
Well, go ahead, Mark.
They're on the road, right? Again, I mean, they got to play this one at home, right? And
yes.
This one will be on the road. I mean, winning on the road is a lot harder.
This one is at home. This one is at home coming up. Yeah.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear what the Buccaneers coach got asked?
What's that?
So the member of the press asked
that plays in our favor too, because there's some little warm. They're like me. They're warm-blooded and soft.
Well, it has to do with that. This reporter asked the coach, like, how are you preparing? How are your players preparing for the cold temperatures? It's going to be like 13 degrees in Detroit. How are you preparing? And the coach goes, we play inside, right? So for like the 20 seconds that we're out of the bus walking into the stadium, I don't think we need to prepare for that.
But I think the psychology of it, think about this. These little pampered Buccaneers coming from sunny Florida. I mean, and it's cool there too, but this is a different kind of cold. And I'll tell you, you'll change your life. Your life will change walking from your house to your car. I mean, it will change your perspective and your life. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a psychology piece that plays in their mind, thinking like, oh my God, it's freezing here. Because I've been in that stadium and Ford Field, as big as it is, and it is a comfortable temperature. Those doors are opening and you feel that wind whipping through there. You feel those Arctic temperatures. I think that may be our secret weapon going into this.
Well, they should just turn off the heat in the stadium if you believe that. Just turn off the heat and have it drop down to like freezing. But the reality is Tampa's got a lot of players that played college football, probably in the Big Ten. And
I'm sure they are, because we produce them and ship them everywhere.
Yeah.
Jonathan said we should just leave the doors open.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about it, and I'm hoping that we can get some of these players. I've had conversations with Herman Moore, and we're trying to see if we can get him in on the show and to get his perspective on some things that are going on. So if we can't do it this week, I'm hoping they win so that we can get him in. He is one of the favorites of the former glory. And then I've also been reaching out to our guy, Barry Sanders. I had him come up a couple of times for some golf outings. I'm hoping that we can just get him in to one of our, like Mark is all over the world, so we can stream people in and make it happen. So great things are on the horizon. If we can get a win on this coming week, I think that we'll have a great opportunity to have some really cool conversations with some iconic figures with the Lions. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, we got to talk about it. Like, we all hate it. None of us are happy, but we got to talk about what's happening in this wonderful world of politics. Mark, what's going on?
I guess what people expected. Primary tends to bring out, the far extreme of either party, and so all the Trump people came out and supported him. I'm disappointed, obviously, but it is what it is. So,
I mean, this is historic. Starting out like over 50%. I mean, I don't. This is bananas. And what's interesting?
I actually think there's less people that support him today than of the general population. I think there are less people that support him today than 4 years ago.
What do you think about that, Jonathan? I don't know if I agree with that, because I tend to think that it may be. I think that the people that support him, the base, obviously, his base has not gone anywhere, right? But I also think that some people are like, look, we can't continue doing what we've been doing. And so just kind of like how so many people voted for Biden, look, he is the lesser of two evils. He's going to be the Republican nominee. Let's jump behind him. At least we know what.
There's more centrist Republicans that won't vote for him. I just think there's more centrist Republicans that would just not vote for him.
You mean more unemployed centrist Republicans like
unemployment
like
is the lowest it's
like
been
Miss
in a long time. Unemployment's not an issue. So
I think
I'm not a fan of Biden either. To me, it'll be the saddest indictment of U.S. politics.
Doesn't he remind you guys of Mr. Burns? Again. He reminds me of Mr. Burns from The Simpsons.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, to me, it's the sad state of affairs if we're going to do that again.
Go ahead, Jonathan. What are you saying?
I think the question is, I think there are a lot of people in the center that don't support either extreme, but the question is, will they vote? because that.
So you think it's going to be low, like record low turnout?
No, I just think that voter turnout has been it's low, and it's the people in the middle that don't turn out to vote.
What's interesting is
because there's nobody for the. I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because they're not voting in the primary. That's why his percentage goes up. You know, I registered for the primary, which I don't normally do, specifically to vote against Donald Trump. I'll choose any Republican, even though I don't like Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis, really. I'll choose one of them versus Donald Trump just to vote against them.
You mean Nikki Haley, who has alluded to the fact that the U.S. has never been racist? That Nikki Haley?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? Oh, those are the latest sound bites.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Democrat field looks so much better, doesn't it?
Hey, I don't like I told you, I'm not Democrat or Republican, but I do want to make.
I'm just trying to make sure that we're beating up on both sides equally here.
There's nothing to beat up on the other side. You know, we can.
The other side's got
jail for beating up old men. We got to be careful because we can be jailed for beating up old men. It'd be like ageism. You're beating up old men. You know, so as he kind of makes it to the. It's almost like he's got a marionette. You know, he's a marionette.
I'm surprised Biden is running again.
I am too, to be honest.
Promise was that he would only do it one time and then he would step down.
Was it?
That was what he was promising initially. So, but you know, his vice president, I'm looking under the desk to see if I can find Kamala, because I haven't seen her in. Okay. Anyways, let me go.
Yep.
The point that I really wanted to make, I'm gonna leave Kamala alone because all of her sorority sisters are like, you should leave Kamala alone because she's one of us. Ski-wee, you know, that whole thing. And I love it. I love that, you know, she has been elected. I don't think that I've ever seen like a vice president disappear and go into oblivion in the way that she has. But hey, it is what it is. My thing that I think that's interesting, and I want to get your perspectives. What do you think? There is a real trend. It's a real thing, and I'm going to tell you. I got a call. Oh, and I don't know if I should say this. Okay, let's let it out the bag. I got a call from a national Democratic force, right? That works with bringing black votes in, and they were having a conversation, and you know, we've engaged before, and I asked them a question like, are we just gonna act like we're not gonna talk about the elephant in the room? Like, what are you going to do to get black voters, in particularly black male voters, to vote for Joe Biden or whomever the anti-Trump? Because there is a real movement. This is real. Of black men that are being enamored and actually looking at the Republican Party. Mark, are you seeing or hearing those same sentiments in circles where you are?
Well, no, because I don't typically run in those circles. Just being not that I wouldn't. I just don't have. You're right.
You don't run in black circles, or which is it, Mark? Tell me.
Yeah, well, no, I don't have.
I'm messing with you.
You're one of the few. I have a handful. But the data is pretty clear.
You would be running in a circle. You'd be running a circle around me is what it would be. But go ahead.
Yeah, but the data was pretty clear in the last election that Donald Trump, you know, got a lot of black voters, primarily men, to support him. I think I'm just guessing as a white guy, you'd be better suited potentially to answer why. But I think they like his kind of FU personality.
Did he just say you as a white guy? Bro, real, that's what we doing now. No, as a black man. No, I honestly think and I'm a part of it excites me, but it scares me at the same time. I think that a lot of black people are finally getting to the point that they recognize, look, I need to vote my interest. I cannot continue to be a block vote for any particular party, be it Republicans or Democrats. Is this kind of like one of the first times that there's not been at least someone who is giving messaging in a third party of some sort, you know, talking about what other people are not talking about? This is, to me, this whole political season is so weird. And so I think that this movement and what I see with black men really giving attention to Trump, let's be clear. Black folks aren't a monolith. Black men are achieving and doing great things and making great things happen. And their economic basis, as we talked before, Mark, if we talk, you vote your politics based upon your economics. Some of them are really doing some things differently. People are tired of being taken for granted. Hello, Democratic Party. That's what the word is. And so it's going to be so interesting to see how this thing plays out. Jonathan, I see you with words on the lips.
I think well, here goes my mic again. Continue.
Okay, we're having some technical difficulties as it relates to what's happening, but I am. Are you ready?
I'm good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is Trump is very good. He built his entire platform speaking to the idea that the people that he's talking to are, I don't want to use the word oppressed, but they're taken advantage of.
America's
they feel disenfranchised from the system.
There you go.
I think that, and I think more and more people are identifying with that, and of all races. I think that's something that crosses racial boundaries. But I think when you're talking about more black men being drawn to that, I think that's the part of the messaging that is kind of the lure. And then you kind of listen to the rest of what he's saying, and you either agree with it or you disagree with it.
I'm going to tell you one of the things that, and I've always said this about number 45. I often don't speak to him by name, but number 45, one of the things that I can relate to is kind of what you're saying, Jonathan. He is, he claims himself an outsider, but he's willing to say exactly what he feels, or at least boldly, emphatically state whatever the campaign spiel is, but he does it in a way that's unapologetic. He speaks truth to power in so many. Well, he speaks to power. How much of it is true may be a whole other conversation. But I think that that's something, especially if you look at people who are oppressed, they want somebody who says, listen, no, we're not doing that. We're going to put America first. That's one of the things that we both agree on, Jonathan, is that we need a common sense politics from somebody who says we're going to put America first. And I like that.
But are you saying I don't agree with that?
Well, no, I just know that you just don't like him. And so, but I don't know what your I don't want to say what I know that Jonathan has articulated that. What are your thoughts, Mr. Rich Guy?
Well, rich is a relative term. Am I richer than Jonathan? Yes, I am richer than Jonathan, but there's a lot of people who are not richer than. But
go ahead, Mark.
I mean, I was alluding to the comment about America first. I think
where do you stand with that?
Well, I do think we should obviously make sure we take care of ourselves, but there's a total world out there as well that we have a role in, and we have certain values and principles that we'd like to see upheld and supported. And so I always say it's a balance between those two. And, no matter what you do as a leader, there are going to be people that are critical of what you do. So there's no perfect or easy answer to any of these. So
this is like transitioning like butter to where we're going next here. And I titled this America, a Nation in Conflict. And this is what I mean. We got wars going on. The situation in Israel and in Gaza is yet real. We now see, and I can never get the name of it. I was going to say the Hatitsis, but that's in Africa. But there's a group. What's the name of the group?
The Houthi.
The Houthi. Iran-backed group is now creating havoc. The U.S. is now shooting missiles back and forth with Iran. This can only lead to great things. We still have a situation that's taking place that is on the back burner for now with Ukraine. What do we do? How do we disconnect from the madness?
I don't know that you can. I mean, once you're connected, it's really hard to disconnect. I think
avoid connecting in the first place.
At some point you do, and it's really not good. So
this is the thing. So we got all of these wars going on. We have an influx of folks coming across the border, like it's they're passing out free tickets to Cedar Point or Six Flags, and folks are coming across. I am really being agitated. Are you guys agitated by the lack of our border control right now in terms of how people are coming in? They're putting them in places that really they don't know where to put them, so they're putting them in places where we often have to figure out, what where we're going to place them. So they're putting them in schools in different places, and some people are doing home learning, and
those cities that voted to be sanctuary cities or voted for officials that made them sanctuary cities are now accepting migrants. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
I don't think it's a wonderful thing. I think there's a lesson to be learned.
I think there's a lesson to be learned.
I don't think it's a wonderful thing.
I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you. But as a black man in America, and this is, I'll say it, I don't care. Black America has been bamboozled, I think, as it relates to their stance and their positioning on border security. And
what is the position, broadly speaking? I don't know, to be honest.
Well, I think that in most cases they feel like we are a nation of immigrants. We should bring all these folks in. But what I see as a black man in America, that what's happening at the border is called replacement politics. They're creating and generating a group of people who are going to be dependent on a government that I still believe has some wrongs to right as it relates to those who are citizens of this nation already. And so I see that even with voting blocks, they're coming in, and when we look at their politics are not consistent with other minority groups in the country. And so we're creating and allowing a problem. We're voting for people who are continuing a problem that is actually erasing the power of our vote. I said it. There you go.
That's the key, though. We are voting them into power.
Absolutely.
Yep. I mean, and people are choosing politicians. We choose them. So
it's a problem. And I think that for a long time, you get caught into situations, and if you're not paying attention to what's happening, it's easy to buy narratives that people paint for you. So you've got to become aware of what's happening, have some real conversation, ask some tough questions, because if we're picking up people, they came across, they made it to US, let's put them on a ship and we're going to send you to a trip to New York City. It's like, this is not Wheel of Fortune, and we're not going through the prize round to show you all the benefits that this amazing country has because you made it to safety. My folks didn't come across that way. My people didn't come to this place, and I've always had some issues as it relates to how the US treats its new immigrants into this land versus how it treats its current citizens that are already a part of this country. It is not xenophobia at all. It is what I consider putting America first. And I hear the silence on y'all, like, let the black man say it. No.
Yep.
But so what, out of curiosity, Kareem, what is your view on immigration? Should we not allow it? Close the border? What should we do?
I think that every nation has to have a pathway to citizenship, right? And this country is a nation of immigrants. However, as many people have said, and this is very right wing, if you don't do the pathway, put you back on a plane like they did those citizens that came from Haiti, they put them back on a plane and sent them back to Haiti. I think that we need to close the border, and when people come across because they don't respect our processes, send them back to Venezuela, send them back to Uruguay, send them back to wherever they came from, and then go through the processes that we have set up and we have put in alignment for citizenship to this country. That's the way we got to do it. We got to make folks appreciate and obey the processes we put in place. This is America. You don't do what you want to. But we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to United Shades of Grey on WSGW.
This is Kareem. We're back with more United Shades of Grey. Now that I have solved America's problems and put political points in place for those who are running, I think that we can move on to the conversation of the day. I've been having so many conversations with people who are talking about this year, I'm going to do this differently. This year, I really want to make a change. I've been afraid to start my business, Mark. I really need to look for a new job or a new profession, but I feel like maybe this isn't the time to move. So we want to talk about how we can revitalize our lives. Let's refresh and live again by embracing change. How are you guys as it relates to operating and dealing with change?
I'm all for it, man. I love it. That's how you grow. That's how you develop. I mean, change is inevitable. It's just how much change are you willing to accept, and do you reject it or try to rebuff it? But change is inevitable. Every day we're different than we were the day before, and you either embrace it or you run from it.
What about you, Jonathan?
I don't seek out change, but I'd rather not be pushed into it. So it's an opportunist mindset of, if an avenue shows up, I'll pursue it. And okay, how feasible is this? And that has gotten me into not trouble, but it's been I'm 3 steps into investigating what this is, and now I'm following this path. Okay, I guess this is what I'm doing now.
So do you have to investigate before you make the change, or do you just take the leap?
I investigate and then kind of, okay, here's where I am. Do I have a solid thing to fall back on? Is where I am right now becoming unstable and I need to move on to something else?
Mark,
mine has always been about growth. It's been a constant journey of trying to grow, whatever that is, personally, emotionally, professionally.
You're pushing forward.
Forward and trying to be better a little better every day. So constantly challenging myself of who am I? What am I? What are my weaknesses? How do I get better? How do I do more? Every day, basically.
I want to talk a little bit about that, but I want to ask this question first. But Mark, because you're kind of going into a space that I really want to talk about. Do either of you guys suffer from analysis paralysis? Do you get caught in thinking through the process that sometimes you do not move? Because there's so many people. No, not you, Mark.
Well, here's what I would say, Kareem. In my earlier days, I'm a very analytical person by nature. And so I would analyze things and, constantly and look at things from every angle. Through the course of my life, as I've gotten different experiences, a lot of them professional, what I've learned is the reality is, I've grown to the point where, very few decisions are so life critical that they'll either, cause you your life or your career. And you're better. I always have this saying that I'd rather be going in the wrong direction than no direction at all, because at least I'm gaining information that this is the wrong direction, hopefully. Whereas if you just stand there doing nothing, you actually don't learn anything. And so I've gotten to the point where literally, and it drives people nuts, I'll make huge decisions, literally $1 billion decision with whatever information I have at the time, if I have to make it. And the concept of being wrong never even crosses my mind.
Mark, this is where I think we connected in such a powerful way. We were having what are we waiting on? Let's just do it.
Let's do it.
And I'm the person, if I'm having a thought at 10 o'clock at night, I'm like, wow, this is really a good idea. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, okay. I'll say, there's some changes. I'll think about it for a second. But when I wake up the next morning at 5:30, 6 a.m., I'm like, okay, we're making the change happen. Let's just do it. And it drives people bananas. And I want to talk about the impact, and because I don't think it's impulsiveness. I just think
good judgment and the desire to make things happen and to move forward. No, I'd like to add to that if it's okay.
Absolutely.
I think you're in a position of leadership like yourself or myself or whomever, and you have that natural DNA of hey, I've thought about it for 10 seconds. This sounds like a great idea. Let's go. It is valuable because, and the reality is 95% of the time it's a good decision and you're right. But I do think it is valuable to have those people you're alluding to around you to go hey, have you thought about this or that? because every so often, you know what, they're right. I haven't thought about this or that, and you know what, you're right. Let's wait. And so,
Okay, what were you gonna say, Jonathan?
Hi, I'm one of those people.
Which people?
Hey, what about this? What about this?
yeah.
I have to think through not all aspects of things, but generally my thought process. Okay, how would we make this work? How would I get from A to Z? What problems would show up along the way feasibly if I follow that path? And
but that's all tactical stuff of like, okay, now we got to figure that out.
No. I think about that before making the decision.
Yeah, no, he really does.
Do anymore, because I look at like the end result of this decision. What are we trying to accomplish? And I look at things really in broad strokes of probabilities and risk reward. And so, like, if this is a big reward and very little risk, even if the probability of success is low, I go for it, because, like, so what? Okay, we only lost a little bit of money if it fails, but if we were successful, holy cow, we make a bunch of money, even if it's like a 5% probability of success.
But this is the thing. This is the thing about that I've learned, Mark, as I'm becoming like Halloween personified to certain people when it comes to my ability to make a decision and stick with it. I'm the kind of person like, okay, I'll make the decision and I'm willing to suffer the outcome because I trust my judgment, right?
Yeah.
But what I realized in those processes is like people like Jonathan, I scare the bejeebas out of.
Yes.
Because
but if you own the accountability, that usually assuages them. I mean, they're usually like, okay, I mean, if you're taking the bullet for this, cool. So
yeah, I'd say that's accurate.
But we've had situations, Jonathan, and I think that this is where we have to learn how we all operate in a place of change. Jonathan, he sometimes thinks, because I think you understand, like, okay, Kareem's going to make a decision. He just does it. He's going to move. And so Jonathan comes to me and he's like, well, let's just have a conversation. Have you thought about this? Have you thought? And I think when we first started down that path, Jonathan, you were thinking like, oh, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I don't want to irritate him. I don't want to be, contrary to what his thoughts are on this. But the reality of it is, and like Mark just said, people who are confident in making decisions and are willing to live with it, we appreciate people who are more methodical in I drive people crazy.
Yeah, I'm not like a detailed planner. I'm not going to lay out, here's the 12-step process to do this. I need other people to do that. I need other people. I know the big steps we need to take, but like all the details in between here and there, someone else needs to work on that. I'm not doing that, man.
So we're talking about people who are visionaries, and we're talking about people who are builders versus people who are sustainers. I can tell you right now, I'm the individual. If you want to make a change, I'm going to show you a way to make that change happen. I'm going to show you the way to be impactful in making that change. But once the change is done, I'm like, okay, I need something else, because I'll get stir crazy having to put processes in place to continue to keep this thing functioning. And I think that there is a very interesting relationship between people who are change averse and to people who embrace change and jump. I want to ask a question. How do you know if you are maybe afraid of change? And I want to give you guys a resource. There is a resource that I use in training when it comes to change. And Mark, I know that you've heard this before. There is a small book titled Who Moved My Cheese? Have you ever heard of that book?
I've heard of it. To be honest, I've never read it though.
Oh my gosh. So I use this book because it gives us some very clear perspectives of how we get caught in our own minds and we're afraid to make necessary changes. A brief overview. The book is designed where there's a conversation and then they begin the story about 4 individuals, right? 2 of the individuals are Sniff and Scurry, and they're really essentially mice, right? We call them little people, but they're essentially mice. So Sniff and Scurry, and then there's Him and Haw. Sniff and Scurry represents you and I, Mark. They're the ones who are like, hey, let's get into the maze. this cheese is great, but guess what? If we got this cheese, what might we uncover? Let's get out there and make it happen. And then him and Ha are the ones who kind of, Jonathan, you know, they like, I've built this life. I'm here. I have my systems in place. I show up at this time. We convert over to this, and they are very, is the word pragmatic, but they
Pragmatic,
like, yeah, they and how they operate, right? And it talks about how we have to challenge ourselves at times to get uncomfortable and the power of being uncomfortable. And I want to ask this question. When you think about the power of the times you've really accessed the power of being uncomfortable, Mark, what were the reasons and then what were the outcomes?
Well, the reasons, again, were all about the opportunity to grow, because I think you have to force yourself to be uncomfortable to grow. And growth could be in any respect, spiritual, personal relationships, personal growth professionally, personal growth, you know, for your own self-worth. And so for you to really grow, it's like exercise. To really get in good shape and grow muscles, you have to get uncomfortable. And, you know, there hasn't been a...
Is that my problem, Mark?
that is your problem, Kareem. Yeah. If you want to get in better shape, you got to actually work at it, just like in anything. And the reality is I, again, like my thing about, it's always worked out great for me. And that doesn't mean that it's smooth sailing, that there aren't bumps in the road and that you don't fall down, you don't make mistakes, you don't go backwards at times. But that's kind of my thing around, you know, I'd rather be going in the wrong direction than no direction at all. Because as you force change, there will be times when you're going in the wrong direction, and you just got to learn from it, turn yourself around and go in the right direction now.
Here's another perspective on, quote, being uncomfortable. For a person like me who's very analytical and I want to figure things out before I
want to know what the problems are before I encounter them.
Yep. Being uncomfortable is going for something and taking that risk, even if it's minimal risk, taking that risk, it's uncomfortable. I would say for someone who is more impulsive, more let's go for it, let's do it, being uncomfortable would be waiting and seeing and thinking through that.
That's good.
That's more, I think that's uncomfortable for.
No, that
does cause. What's interesting to me is my personal journey. Not that this is about me, but I'm a very analytical person, John.
No, Mark, it's not about you. It's about me. It's United States of Gray with Kareem. No, but go ahead.
I'm a very analytical person, and before I used to give talks when I was in PhD and early in my R&D career, I would literally prepare for days thinking about every question someone might ask me, so that I could have the answer prepared for it. And through time and experience and doing things, I've become very much the other, where sitting here waiting for something makes me uncomfortable versus the unknown making me uncomfortable. And that the reason I wanted to mention that is for you, Jonathan, frankly, is like, I hear what you're saying. That doesn't mean you can't grow and evolve. Oh, yeah. And it pushes the boundaries. And not that there's anything wrong with you, but you can continue to grow and be more comfortable with kind of the unknown.
And it's certainly a learning experience for people who are more analytical, more pragmatic, to know that using that uncomfortableness and embracing that, okay, something has to change here. Let's take a step, even if it is a small step, but even if it's a big step, a step needs to be taken here. And knowing when to recognize those times is huge. And it's something that I'm starting to figure out.
You know what?
I would actually challenge you, Jonathan, not even to just take it and see what happens, because the reality is nothing bad is probably going to happen.
You know what? Talent often causes us to stay in places where we're comfortable, and we find ourselves outliving that space a lot faster than when we look at people who are purpose driven, because purpose is something that doesn't stay still, right? It is fluid, it is progressive, it is growing. And so oftentimes I see people, especially in jobs, Mark, where they stay in a place where they're talented because they're celebrated in that space. they get accolades, they get, good pay. They become known as the man of that space or the woman of that space. And they allow their talent to lock them into places that if they were really purpose driven in how they operated, that purpose, which evolves, would challenge you to new places. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm going to make it about me for a minute because everybody's
Okay.
had their opportunity.
Go ahead.
Counterpoint, though, I had an opportunity recently. I'm not going to go into super big detail about it. I had an opportunity that would have been a major change.
CNN.
And it sounded great. It sounded like, yeah, this is the perfect fit. It's moving up. It is progressing. And it would definitely be taking me out of what is comfortable. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna dig into this. I'm gonna see. And my first response, my knee-jerk reaction was, heck no, nope. But I thought about it. I'm like, I'm gonna see. And I dug in. And the more I looked, the more I'm like, yeah, this is great. And I got to kind of the step before the big step, and I learned it just enough to go, this isn't my purpose. This is not meant for me. This isn't the opportunity that I'm supposed to take right now. And it wasn't a fear thing. It was this isn't it. If I had just taken that step, I would have regretted it. And I know I would have.
You know what? First of all,
I think any decision.
Mark, hold on 1 second. One second, because I got to tell Jonathan why he didn't take the step, why he didn't do it. One of the reasons is because you'll be like, you know what? I won't be able to have the most amazing black friend if I do this. So that was one of the reasons. You didn't want to leave.
Made a better black friend somewhere else.
Is there such a thing? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not suggesting, because we're being. We've been a little bit kind of flippant along the way, that there are any kind of life-changing decision. I'm not saying don't think about it, don't ponder. I'm just saying
you got to count the cost, right?
Yeah. It's back to the risk reward. Any decision where, like, yeah, this is fundamentally going to change my life. Yeah, for sure, you should spend time.
Okay, so when Mark comes
into like this, is this really the right thing for me to do? Kind of back to your point on purpose, Kareem. Again, I never really thought a lot about purpose through the early part of my career, but as I look back on, like, why did I make this decision? They all came back to the same thing. Is like every decision I made in my career was really about trying to put myself in a position to have a big impact on the bigger part of the business and more people. And that's ultimately was at the core of why I made each decision, even though at the time I may not have been so aware of it.
I want, because we are all men of faith, and I think this is an interesting question. All right. We've been talking about purpose, and I'm a person. One of the reasons why I think I'm able to make decisions is because I understand what my purpose is. And if things are aligned with my purpose, and that's kind of the navigating point for my life. Yep. So I can make the decision, right? When you consider your faith and change, how does your faith impact your ability to embrace change?
I guess I've never looked at it that way.
You should, Mark. I'm asking.
I should. That's like Mary. I think my wife is really good at looking at it from that point of view. I just never have, and I actually envy that. And I've been trying to work on that. In other words, like I used to have, like, if things didn't go the way I wanted them to, I'd get all mad. I'd get upset. Like, this isn't according to my plan. And and Mary was always like, well, this is God's plan, so just accept it and move on the best you can. And the reality is at every kind of what I thought was like, well, this didn't work out. This sucks. This is horrible. It ended up way better than my plan. But I still struggle with that. It's just something I've got to work on.
What about you, Jonathan?
I think on the opposite end of things, whereas that is kind of helping to deal with the consequences of something that went wrong. I think in terms of faith, it gives me a grounded place to launch from. It is, no matter what I change, this isn't going to change. My faith is not going to change. The reality that I believe is not going to change. And I think that is a great comfort to have.
This is Jeremiah 29:11, and I think we're going to be preaching on today.
That is my favorite verse.
Favorite scripture, right?
Yep.
When I began to understand that there is a divine plan, I think that every individual has. Like, you were actually born with a certain skill set and things that create an opportunity for you to excel in certain places, right? When you find that purpose and when it's revealed or unveiled or discovered in your life, it begins to give a confidence that I think enables you to embrace change. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you a hope and a future, to bring you to an expected end. When I begin to think about that particular scripture and how it and what it says, it gives me a peace to make decisions, because I understand that at the end of the day, as long as I try to be in tune with my divine father, my spiritual father, that he has a plan that brings me to where he has already destined me to be. So I've never been one to chase anything because of money. There's a job opportunity right now that, they want me to help with this basketball arm. I don't want to do that because it's not in line with my purpose right now. And I have a firm belief that profitability pursues purpose. So every step in my life, I've always tried to be purposeful, understanding that what God gives vision, he always gives provision. So it's given me a comfort to be able to make hard decisions, understanding that my steps are ordered. Yeah, John.
How do people find that purpose to move from? Because it is a place of, okay, I know my purpose. Now I know what light I need to make decisions in. How can people find that?
This is interesting because Mark and I had this conversation.
I'm on that journey right now, Jonathan, trying to find my new purpose. I'm trying to find my new purpose. I've got all these skills God's given me that I've used, I think anyway, for his will up until now. And I'm looking for my new purpose. So,
okay, I can share this, I think, Mark, because
Sure.
You've kind of talked about it before. Mark was excelling at a job that paid him very, very, very well. He had a community that supported him, that absolutely loved him. And we had a conversation where Mark was like, you know what, Kareem, I've been doing this and concerned about this. I want to live a more purposeful life. I want to make sure I have better relationships with my family. I want to make sure that my children love me, that my wife understands the important value that I see she has brought to the table. And I want to really walk in my purpose. And I saw you turn down a job that paid extremely well, walk away from it, in fact, to pursue a life of purpose. How is that journey going for you, Mark? We got 1 minute and 43 seconds. Share what you can.
The reality is I'm just beginning it, because I kind of got too engaged in too many distractions for the first year and a half or 2 years. And so now I've decided to take a step back, and I'm just really beginning it. And to your point, I'm uncomfortable. I'm nervous. I've had questions like, why did I do that again? Did I make a mistake? Did I make the wrong decision? Deep down, I know that I didn't, but it's scary. And but I'm going to go to kind of remove myself from my current world and really try to become more mindful and look for and listen for God's guidance on what is the next journey look like.
Man, that is such a powerful statement. Anyone who hears this conversation, I hope they take that as their takeaway. That really you're not living life if everything around you is comfortable, but you got to begin, as they say in the book, Who Moved My Cheese, to get back into the maze. Enjoy the feeling of being uncomfortable. Understand that there is a divine process and a plan for your life, that if you follow your heart and your passions, that you will always find yourself in a place that you're standing firmly on your feet, looking toward the door of victory and celebrating each and every change in your life. I want to say this, as I often say, don't be afraid to embrace change. Change is necessary, change is inevitable, and change is your friend. Thank you for tuning in to United Shades of Gray. God bless you all. Grace and peace.